so much. Give me just a second while I get set up here. I got a couple of little surprises for you.
Oh, I failed to mention your bingo cards are Bruce's fault.
Yeah. So there's bingo. That's for the whole day. It's not just for our stuff. And hopefully you guys will start working on that. I'll tell you a little bit more about the game and how to play bingo. If somehow that's a unique concept to you culturally, then feel free to Google it. Lots of different ways to win bingo. Some of those are more exciting than others. So what we wanted to talk today about was magical payments experiences on the digital edge. I think the conversation we've already had this morning has been really exciting. I have to sport the T-shirt and jeans because I otherwise get my Founders Club card pulled, founder and CEO of Modo, and we're really excited about payments stuff, payments geekery, which is why we put the bingo cards out there. And like I said, I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. Really appreciate that, Alistair. Really appreciate seeing Karen again, who is dressed gloriously to the nines, as always. Today's a red letter day for me because even though I'm sporting the T-shirt, which you can win, and we can talk about the hats in a second, she complimented me on my pocket square.
It's very
Thank you. So I'm kind of riding high today already. So on that bingo card, play throughout the day. You'll win a T-shirt. You can maybe get a hat, and we'll talk about how you can get that. If you flip it over on the back, you can shoot us a note. So why magic? Why do we use that phrase? What's that even really about? Is this actually serious or is this not serious? And it's quite serious. And that's because Arthur C. Clarke pointed out to us that when consumers confront, or just anyone confronts something that they really don't understand how it worked, they sort of, oh, that must have been magic. And that creates that surprise, that delight, that excitement that drives some of the habitual issues that we just talked about, and it also drives value. It removes friction. And we've already touched on several of these, so you can, again, start making your bingo cards out. If you told somebody 15 years ago that somebody would be able to drive up, pick you up on a street corner, greet you by name, take you exactly where you wanted to go, never talk about your destination, and get paid without you really doing anything directly with that person, you might have, and I believe people do think of that as magical. We've already talked about getting coffee. We've already talked about getting your rewards, incorporating gifts people might have given you in that transaction. Maybe the coffee's actually already ready and waiting for you when you get there. That seems pretty magical too. There's some interesting new stuff kind of going on. I was a little sobered. I don't know whether you were. I mean, I'm excited to hear that Amazon is blowing it out and had another amazing year, holiday season. They're taking that, obviously, the one-click thing, because all this is about payments, so we're going to talk about how it relates to payments. But it's a little sobering thinking about them going in-store now, right? And Amazon Go. Hearing the announcement about Macy's shutting down a lot of stores after this holiday season's disappointments. There's kind of a good and bad news to this story. We'll come back to that. Cartwheel. I don't know if you guys have been following this one. This one's really exciting to me. Consumers are able to get all the different offers available to them either from the store, from Target, or from brands that might be sold there through their phone. So what is it about these things consistently that actually makes a difference in the real world? Why should you or anyone else actually care? Maybe these are bespoke things, and maybe it has something to do with selling addictive substances. Maybe it has something to do with being the first to market in ride shares. Right? Maybe there's some other factors, and I'm actually going to challenge you that that's not actually the case. I'm, of course, going to claim that the reason that this chart and this stat are all up and to the right and so galactically intercolossal in terms of the impact they're making on these businesses is precisely because they've solved for a magical payments experience, which may be what you expect me to say. But this one's really, really interesting. I kind of zero in on the Target one in particular because you went from 0 to 23 million users, 0 to $3 billion in revenues for Target over 3 years. That is hockey stick growth. That is something really, really interesting. And it happened in the context of a business that we don't tend to think of as all of that magical, innovative, or unicornish. But nonetheless, it's occurred. So, I am a kid of the 70s and 80s. There are a few references to that. Karen just mentioned she was afraid of ghosts. Hopefully we can disabuse you of that. We will be visited by the ghost of Nobel laureate economist Joseph Schumpeter several times throughout the day. But hopefully you're getting the sense that you too would like to participate in this. And this is how back in the day we would have said that.
But we're a pepper, wouldn't you like to be a pepper too?
So I'm from Texas. Dr. Pepper's a big deal. And wouldn't you like to be a pepper is something that people actually did and maybe sometimes do still say to each other. And I think that's the upside. You could join the club. You could figure out how to make a payments experience so interesting, so engaging that people actually somehow thought you were doing something magical. Or the first visit of our friend who invented the term creative to destruction. Creative destruction is what Joseph Schumpeter defined as the economic process that tends to occur particularly in capitalistic economies where something new comes along and eats it, crushes it, destroys it. Now we would call it disruptive. That would be the term that I think most economists would associate with that. But the part of Dr. Schumpeter is being played today by the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man because ghosts are really, in fact, not that scary. And we'll come back to how they're not scary in a bit. But the key point is, don't be this guy. Don't ignore this stuff. Don't ignore the fact that creating an experience around payments actually does, in fact, make a huge difference. So let's go back to the beginning. Let's start again. How did we get to this point, right? So in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, and on the seventh day, he created man in order to sit around and think about what's going to happen in payments for the next few years, right? Well, perhaps not. But we do have sort of this legacy of tokens being used to represent value. The Romans, the Mesopotamians, a whole bunch of people did that with respect to coins. And then our good friends, the Knights Templar, did some really, really cool stuff, inventing very core concepts to modern banking like nostro and vostro, which, if nothing else, are fun to say. Here in the United States, I'll be a little parochial, and I apologize to our globally visiting friends. You started to see some interesting series of things happen in the 20th century, and they were all solving different problems. So first stop, we've had checks for a long time at this point. So this is the first part, this is 1910s, in fact, here in the US. But now you had the ability to go cash a check, not at the bank that it was drawn on, but at the bank that you used, and somebody somewhere back there figured out how to get the money moved. That's interesting. That solved an interesting problem. Now I could send these tokens all over the place through whatever means I wanted, and the funds would just follow. Next stop, basically the next decade. Let's use this telegram stuff, and in fact, deliver value that way quickly. It sounds a little bit about like P2P, only this time we want to know for sure that the money has been sent, that it's on its way. I don't know necessarily what's happened to it once it's gotten there, but I do know that I got it over there and the funds were good. Fast forward a little bit. We have merchants at this stage of the game that are extending credit. They're extending credit wildly all over the place so that their best customers can have a tab. Well, along comes our friends who invent credit cards for us, Diners Club and American Express in this case, and they solve the problem of merchants extending credit, which they really weren't very good at, and start to help merchants identify consumers who are better targets for various kinds of services and offers. A little more boring, but still interesting too. Payments geek is, in the 70s, we saw the electronification of all that stuff that was happening previously around paper checks. And effectively what we did in this little diagram, which is in fact from the notch description of how those files were formatted in the very first case, some of which is still with us today, was really taking exactly what we did in the 1910s around checks and porting it to the data computing environment. This is old and creaky stuff. It's solving problems, but it's not solving the problems that we're talking about from a creating magic perspective. Fast forward a little bit, and in the 80s, we start seeing other participants jump in. We see the formation of currencies that have absolutely nothing to do with anything other than commercial interests. We normally call that loyalty. And oh, by the way, in the creation of that loyalty product, we saw the creation of one of the most successful financial services products ever invented, which was the American Advantage Citibank card, which shot off to the moon and demonstrated to everybody, when you put these two things together, some interesting things can happen financially. All right, everybody's down on grunge, everybody's down on Blockbuster. They got eaten by Netflix. We saw that earlier in one of Matthew's slides. They did do something really cool in payments, though. So I'm going to defend them on this one point, which is they invented the store gift card. Pretty cool stuff. So we'll give them that. And Mr. Grohl, anyways, is still keeping it cool. Our friends at PayPal invented not only a new way to try and transact things online, but also solved the problem, particularly for eBay, of doing transactions with people you do not know and you do not trust. So they're able to operate as an intermediary there. Now we're doing stuff with phones. That's really, really cool. Venmo's kicked off a lot of awesome stuff there. And then obviously there's something super fantastic and imaginable going on in the Bitcoin and blockchain world. That escapes my ken, however. So Let's look at where we're at from this infrastructure perspective. So if you were looking for numbers, you were looking for stats, here it is. The vertical axis is how much money people who are basically in banking or providing financial services are making. The horizontal axis is a logarithmic scale of how much people who serve those folks are making in the US payments market today. The size of the blue circles is in fact the number of transactions. Every number on this page are in billions. And the size of the white circle is volume. So take a look, and to me, the two things to just, as you're glancing at it, note are wire moves all the money with a smaller number of volume, smaller number of transactions, and makes almost nobody any money at all. Nobody cares. And on the top right-hand quarter, you have association credit and debit cards, and those are the most transactions, the smallest number of dollars, but are creating the most value for the ecosystem players. I think there's something very, very important embedded in here. Cards do more stuff for people, and so therefore it's interesting to look at extending either those capabilities to other payment types or to use those payment types in order to be able to create magical experiences. So should you do this yourself? Is this something you should try at home? Maybe, maybe not. There are some very, very significant challenges in delivering in this infrastructure environment that we're referring to. First one, and actually I think this may be one of the most important ones, and we touched on it tangentially so far, is how do you know who this person is? Is it based on the card or the other form of payment that they're using? And you'll notice when we talked about all those different infrastructure things that were happening throughout the last 120 years, none of those were about solving this problem. Uber has solved this problem, but they're not using the credit card to do it. They're using other services. They're using the phone. They're using the identity in that account. So this is an important problem, and all of the things that we just talked about and all of the things our panelists have referred to really need to address this in order to be able to create something interesting and magical. You need to know who these people are. Another thing that I won't get into all the details of and how ledgers are not connected properly, what blockchain services might offer, what other solutions might offer, but just think about it this way. I'll give you a mental puzzle. Why is it so much easier to track the status of a brown package moving physically across the country than is the status of a payment? That should not be the case. Payments are all electronic, or at least all the ones we're talking about right now. So the reasons for that are some differences in infrastructure and differences in approach and differences in collaboration that still haven't been solved in the payments world, but have for physical goods and services. That's sort of ridiculous. Like packages, sometimes this stuff goes very, very badly. In fact, that's where all costs come from in the payments world, is when people do things they shouldn't do or transactions go the wrong way. Maybe somebody's just having a bad day, I'm not sure. And on that same point, it's sometimes hard to know whether or not a payment is good. Is the value behind this really there? Is this consumer allowed to, or participant, whoever the payer is, allowed to do this transaction? These are important questions, and they have to be solved uniquely inside this magical payments experience we all want to create. Oh yeah, and by the way, we've talked about breaches, we've talked about what happens when you get this stuff wrong. There are bad people, whether they're in this country or other countries or wherever they happen to be, who are actively seeking to bring darkness across the land. So, I don't mean to bring you down. Hopefully you're not feeling a little too squeamish at this point. We fundamentally believe that infrastructure is exactly what we're going to have for the next 15 or 20 years. So I'm here to tell you that I think ISO 8583 transactions will be here in 20 years, just like they are today, just like they have been for the last 30 or 40. So will paper checks, so will ACH transactions in exactly the form that they are today, ... So everything we've talked about, I believe, will be here for a very, very long time. Is that the end of the story? No, of course it's not. Mr. Musk has created a brand new automotive experience that people in West Virginia and Virginia can enjoy. They can. Even though that is their power plant. That is the power plant at the border of West Virginia and Virginia. It's the oldest coal-fired power plant in this continent. But it doesn't matter. When you ship a Model S over there, it still works. So the problem, and I'll tell you a little bit about us for just a couple minutes, the problem that we wanted to solve was, how do you get all this stuff to connect? How do you connect payments to this new digital stuff so you can do all these things you're imagining and not run into the buzzsaw of the problems? And you can look at our website or what have you. This slide kind of depicts our role in that. You can get on the hub wherever you want. You can get off the hub wherever you want. The money goes both ways. We don't care. I don't mean this rudely, but we don't actually care what your user experience is either. We're just going to help you move the money around. And oh, by the way, running money backwards is just as important as forwards, because everybody has a bad day. The way we do that is something we call the coin payment transaction. So I'm going to burn 60 minutes of your very precious time and mine for a little video that'll explain more about how that works. Oops, except that I hit the wrong button.
It doesn't matter how new the new stuff gets, the old stuff still stays old, and they have to work together. New stuff in payments is digital, but it still needs to connect to the old payment systems. This is where Modo's coin payment transaction comes in. It's just like a shipping container for intermodal payments. You can put just about anything in it. And it doesn't matter where it's going, or how it travels, whether it's online, in-store, or in the cloud. The coin is a container for intermodal payments. Need to connect digital checkouts to legacy merchant payment systems? Enable banks to offer digital loyalty programs online or in-store? Handle digital offers, coupons, or gifts? No problem. And the best part, none of your new digital stuff has to worry about how that old stuff works. That's the magic of Coin from Modo.
All right, you made it through. Commercial is over. So let's tell you a little bit about our customers. We recently announced a relationship with Bank of America. They're trying to solve this problem for YouTube, their customer, Google. Obviously a global phenomenon. And as it's become a global phenomenon, those people who produce content, put it on YouTube, and start earning the ad revenues once it goes viral, and of course every time you do something with a cat, it goes viral, right? Well, they need to be paid. Some of those folks are in places where banking infrastructure is not prevalent. The only thing Google really wants to know about this person is their email address, maybe their mobile number. So how do you deliver value that way? Well, that's what you use PayPal for. That's what you use Alipay for. That's what you use M-Pesa for. But connecting those systems to a bank infrastructure for disbursements for corporations is complex, and that's the problem that we're solving. For Klarna, we're powering the delivery of their unbelievably smooth checkout solution, where they're tearing up Northern Europe, and they're now here in the US and expanding throughout Europe and around the world to be able to deliver transactional lending that makes the checkout process frictionless to merchants who have not done an integration with them. So we're providing that instant integration and eliminating that long, very complex effort. We're also introducing them into new models, marketplace models, B2B models, other things that their systems weren't designed to do, but because we can get the value to and from all these participants, it makes it much simpler. Little preview of coming attractions. We're actually announcing this next week at NRF, but you get to see it now. This is a solution to be able to pay with loyalty points at any Verifone terminal on the connected commerce platform. Our partner FIS offers a loyalty product called Scorecard. It's got about 8 million cards out there, billions of dollars in loyalty value run through it every year. And this allows us to identify who this consumer is, figure out how many points they have, and allow them to use it to pay for the transaction that they just conducted on this Verifone terminal. It prints out exactly the way it always does. Disco, you are done. Hopefully, you and everyone else finds that to be magical. You're almost done. So the wrap up. What do we think is really, really important for a magical payments experience? Which of course we all know there isn't such a thing as real magic, right? So you have to actually come up with the technology, you have to come up with how you do this. You need to be able to aggregate value from a bunch of different places. In the consumer and the in-store context, or online context, that's probably loyalty, that's probably offers, that's probably gifts. Excuse me. You have to be able to integrate identity. You have to be able to interact with these people the way that they're now accustomed to, which is you know who they are because they provided a device or they did some other interaction with you to identify themselves. You need to be able to keep track of that outside of the payment system. Reducing loss by knowing that these payments are good, knowing that these payments are going to go correctly because the logistics are not all messed up. I was about to say something I shouldn't. Finally, we have to maintain safety. We have to maintain the ability and the integrity of the system to move money and not lose systemic trust. We all want to talk about winners and losers. Karen is very fond of talking about who's going to win, who's going to lose. I'm a little bit more of a closet socialist, an egalitarian, but I recognize, as Dwight has made very clear to me, that that's probably not human nature and that's probably not how it's all going to work out. So clearly there are going to be people who win and people who do not. Our role is to help you take on the ghosts of creative destruction in a way that allows you to combine and convert the value across all of these different infrastructure elements you have out there. The tools are there. The ability to move the money is there. The question is, what is the experience that you want to wrap around that? And if you're successful, well, you get to enjoy a Texas-based beverage and maybe some s'mores along the way. Thank you very, very much for your time. Hopefully you got bingo, and if you found the third reference to the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, which was really, really tough to track, it's hard to find in there, one of these hats is yours. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Don't go into
I'm right here.
We're gonna do a little chit chat.
Okay.
For just 2
Are you
minutes.
going to wear a hat?
I can wear a hat. I can wear a hat. It doesn't go with my outfit.
No, and it might mess up your hair.
It's gonna mess. Well, I don't care. That's what I need that smart hairbrush for. So it doesn't mess up my
Yeah.
hair. All right, here we go. We're gonna make payments great again.
I hope so.
Why did you decide to? So you didn't start out this way. Why did you decide to pivot?
Yes. So Karen's referring to the fact that she's heard me prattle on many times over the years. And for the first 4 years of our business, we've been around for 6, I had the wrong idea. I call it chasing the mobile payments dragon. That's sort of an unfortunate reference for those of you that know it. But this whole question of adoption of mobile payments, to me, escaped us. So we built this infrastructure, we built this payments hub, and thought that it was really, really focused on delivering that value, that combined aggregated value into a mobile payments experience, but then adoption didn't occur. So we pivoted, we threw away all the mobile payments stuff, and are just focused on the underlying payments plumbing.
How do you decide what use cases are worth investing your time and the time of your partners?
From our perspective, we'll take all comers. The infrastructure is extensible. It doesn't actually cost us anything to get another API call in. We're wired into several dozen payment systems today that are moving hundreds of billions of dollars. Our own platform will be moving billions of dollars over the course of the next 18 months. So we have the right partners, we have the right position, we have the right connections already. So it doesn't matter to us.
Where are you seeing the demand that can scale and make a difference in the experiences of the end users that
Sure.
your partners want to reach?
Yeah, so it's interesting because Karen asked about which use cases we care about. Just repeating that because you may not be able to hear. Over the last year, we have heard more about loyalty. We've heard more from top 5 issuers about how to create loyalty experiences, specifically with mobile wallets, so that that loyalty gets integrated. And American Express has already done an amazing job of that. Capital One's already been trying several things there. So 2016 to us was kind of the year in the consumer payments world of loyalty. I believe that the next big wave will be offers. I think Cartwheel kind of broke the mold on that. I think we're going to be talking about Cartwheel a lot more, and a lot of other people are going to want to try and figure that out too. And offers for SKU level items are the holy grail. That's a very difficult problem to solve.
And how do you build more I don't know if I'm asking this question the right way, but building more intelligence into your platform to do things like offers but dynamically priced or dynamically delivered based on where consumers happen to be. Is that a layer on top of your existing network?
Yes. Our primary function is to do that railroads, the infrastructure that
Yep.
says, okay, I've got a manufacturer here who wants to make large amounts of money, hundreds of millions of dollars generally, available to the consumer public, and they want to know that it's being used effectively. The good news, bad news story is that most of that money today is wasted, so their expectations are very, very low.
Right.
So it's less about optimization, it's more about, can we deliver the funds, can we bring the trucks in and
Got it.
deliver the cash, and do so more efficiently so that even though maybe 50% of that is wasted, we can do that wastage more efficiently and faster.
Got it. Well, you are magic because you made me wear this hat.
I know. I couldn't
So that-
believe you
so
did
that
that.
was
Thank you
awesome.
so
Thank you,
much.
Bruce. Thank you
Really
very
appreciate
much.
your time. Thank you all.